In this vlog I take you on a haunted pub crawl of the United Kingdom. Each pub I mention has a fearsome reputation for hauntings, although there's plenty others that you could add to this list, even create your own pub crawl. Many offer overnight accommodation if you're brave enough. I can only claim to have stayed in one, but have visited quite a few and never felt anything untoward. I might also add that many are no longer open or used as a pub. Beginning in nearly the southwest tip of the UK is the Tinner's Arms in Zeno, Cornwall. D.H. Lawrence stayed a fortnight in the pub in 1916. The pub is listed in paranormal databases as being haunted by a poltergeist. It's believed that multiple ghosts return to the pub's interior, often making their presence known to patrons and staff. The pub is associated with a general eerie and legendary atmosphere of the Penwith area, which is known for tales of miners and spirits. Jamaica Inn, Cornwall, a remote 18th century coaching inn on Bodmin Moor, famous for its smuggling history and literary connection to Daphne du Maurier, a patron, supposedly a smuggler, who was lured outside and murdered. His ghost is seen sitting on the wall or in the car park. Many report the sounds of horses' hooves and the carriage wheels on the cobbles outside. A man in a tricorn hat and green coat who famously walks through solid doors. The Highwayman's Inn, Dartmoor, Devon, features a 13th century tunnel and unique creepy atmosphere. The man in green is a prominent apparition, frequently seen wearing feathers in a hat. Is believed to be a soldier named Samuel, who died at 36 and cannot leave the premises. Witnesses have reported this figure walking through the wall and formerly led to an old stable block. Guests and staff have reported items moving on their own, orbs of light, and a general presence felt throughout the building. The galleon bar, designed with wood from the 19th century ship Diana, where 13 crew members died in Arctic ice, is a hotspot for activity. A young girl previously reported conversations with the oddly dressed man in the feather cap. The Eclipse, Winchester. Having stood since the 16th century, the inn has witnessed many a frightful scene in Winchester's history. One such event is the beheading of Lady Alice Lisle in 1685. Alice harboured rebels in her home after the defeat of the Monmouth Rebellion at the Battle of Sedgemoor. She was tried by the notoriously bloodthirsty Judge Jeffreys, who did not allow her to speak in her own defence. She claimed that she did not know of the rebels' crimes, and pressured the jury to a guilty verdict. She was sentenced to death. She spent the night before her execution in one of the upper rooms of the Eclipse Inn, and exited through the window directly onto the scaffold erected for her beheading. It's said that her ghosts often return to the pub, where she spent her final night. Staff and customers have seen her wearing a grey dress and a name, the Lady in Grey. Located centrally in the square, visitors can pop in for dinner, drinks, and a ghost story or two from the staff. I lived in Winchester for around 4 months, and whilst a hotel in Winchester for around 4 months, whilst didn't go in many pubs, I think I may have visited the Eclipse. The Hyde Tavern, Winchester, a cosy medieval pub just outside the city centre, famous for its oak beams, creaky floors and rumoured ghostly guests. According to local legend, a starving woman appeared at the doors of the pub one winter's night, requesting a place to escape the cold. She was refused entry and found frozen the following morning. Since then, patrons and staff admitted to hearing the ghostly groans of a woman throughout the pub. I have to say this is a common trope across the UK. The Druid's Head Brighton, known for flying objects, cold spot and misting mirrors. A hooded figure glimpsed in peripheral vision vanishes then when looked at directly. Occasionally a woman in red appears near the bar. Pentonville Arms Brighton, boxes and beer crates in the cellar move silently on their own and relocate by morning, as if tidied by an unseen hand. Mermaid Inn Rye is one of the oldest and most delightful inns in England. The 12th century inn was featured in an episode of the Most Haunted TV series and played host to a long list of famous guests. Guests of centuries past loved this charming inn. They loved so much they decided to stick around, giving the Mermaid a reputation for one of the most haunted inns in the UK. Plymouth Feathers Greenwich London is frequently featured in Greenwich ghost tours. Nevertheless, there appears to be little else to justify its inclusion in my vlog, although I do think that this is a pub I have visited. 10 Bells Spitalfields London, associated with the ghosts of the Ripper's victims, including Annie Chapman, a regular. Her spirit is said to haunt the upper floors. Mary Kelly was reputedly seen in a pub with a friend the night before she died. The Prospector Whitby, Shadwell, London, is a historic tavern often haunted by past patrons. The most famous spectre, the notorious hanging Judge Jeffreys, is said to be seen drinking at a table or watching a river from a balcony, having once lived nearby and frequented the tavern. Due to the pub's proximity to the execution dock, the spirit of executed pirates and thieves are rumoured to haunt the premises and the nearby Pelican Stairs. A replica noose in the beer garden serves as a grim reminder of the many criminals, including Captain Kidd, who were executed nearby, with sightings of a figure hanging from the gallows. An apparition of a man in 19th century clothing is frequently seen, sometimes mistaken as a patron. A tragic crying baby is said to haunt the building, with reports of laughter and footsteps. Reports of an invisible hand pushing tenants down the stairs, and sudden localised cold spots. Staff and visitors have reported bottles flying, mirrors misting over, and a woman in red appearing in the forbidden rooms. Dogs have been known to growl at or throw themselves at a specific spot where cats were once walled in. I certainly have been to the Prospect and can confirm a very unsettling atmosphere. The Grenadier, Belgravia, London, known for the ghost of a young officer who was beaten to death after cheating at cards. Visitors often stick money to the ceiling to help pay his debts. Cedric, a silent, shadowy figure, along with cold chills, phantom footsteps, and the sound of moaning in the cellar. Objects are known to move on their own. Tables are rearranged and glasses have been smashed. The ceiling is covered in currency, business cards, and notes from visitors attempting to appease his spirit. A photograph once captured what appeared to be the face at an upper window, described as wearing a fez-like hat. Strange occurrences are often reported to be more frequent during September. At Williamson's Tavern, Bow Lane, London, Martha is rumoured to haunt the cellars, with legends suggesting that she throws objects around and makes her presence known to staff, according to an Instagram post. The Spaniards Inn, Hampstead, London, a mysterious female figure, often described as a lady in white, has been spotted gliding through the garden or in an old guest room on quiet nights. The spirit of a man who was killed by a carriage outside the inn is said to haunt the premises, often felt as a cold presence that tugs on the sheets of sleeves of visitors. Reports exist of a spectral bagpiper who plays near the nearby Hampstead Heath, often associated with the area's history. The inn's spooky atmosphere may have inspired Bram Stoker, as the area is linked to the Bloofer Lady, vampire Lady Wisterna in Dracula. Dickens and Keats are also said to have frequented the Spaniards. Though sometimes confused with other locations, the inn is historically linked to the infamous highwayman Dick Turpin. Famous for its literary connections too, it's said to be haunted by the highwayman Dick Turpin and his horse. The Hollybush, Hampstead, London, often associated with the building's time as an assembly room, a ghostly waitress is said to haunt the premises. George Romney, the famous 18th century painter, who owned a house on the site, is sometimes associated with the building's ghostly reputation. Visitors often report unexplained chilling sensations and auditory disturbances. The Flask Highgate reported to be haunted by a Spanish barmaid who died in the cellar following a failed romance. Castle Inn, Great Leys, Essex, I think closed, has reported spectral sightings, including a ghostly figure often associated with the area's dark history. The blind fiddler, Anstey, Hertfordshire. Around 2 centuries ago, Blind George, a fiddler, was drinking at the Chequers pub, now named the Blind Fiddler. During a dry period, the entrance to a long-rumoured underground tunnel, known as the Devil's Hole, was exposed at a chalk pit called Cave Gate. Despite legends that no one who has entered the tunnel would return, a quarrelsome and post-valiant George took his fiddle and dog into the passage. Villagers followed his progress above the ground by listening to the music playing underground. Roughly halfway to Anstey Castle, the music turns into shrieks and then silence. The dog ran out of the tunnel with its hair singed and hair and tail missing, howling as if chased by devils. George was never seen again. The entrance was sealed to prevent George's ghost from escaping. A legend says that when it snows in Anstey, the snow melts in a straight line from the castle gate to the market, marking the path of the tunnel. Again, this is a familiar trope with a similar story coming from near my childhood, along the Shropshire-Welsh border, although tinged with Celtic mythology. Boot and slipper Amersham, the cellar is recognised as a focal point for ghostly activity. The haunting is associated with the imprisonment of the Amersham martyrs, Protestant martyrs at the time of Henry VIII, which is believed to be the source of paranormal occurrences. The Ostrich Inn, Slough, the upstairs Blue Room, is where a trapdoor mechanism was located, with reports of intense, heavy atmospheres. Reports suggest that the ghost of the murdered traveller, or perhaps the vengeful spirits of the victims, haunt the premises. Visitors and staff have reported or heard reports of items moving on their own, loud knocking, and a tall, dark stranger appearing in the inn. Red Lion, Avebury, Wiltshire, unique for being the only pub in the world located entirely within a prehistoric stone circle. A 17th century woman, Florrie, murdered by her husband, was thrown down a well that is now a glass-topped table in the pub. A coach and horses is sometimes seen clattering through the courtyard. 2 ghost children are frequently reported cowering in the corner of one of the guest rooms. This is another pub that I have visited and certainly can recommend it, but maybe more for its location than the overtly paranormal. George and Pilgrim, Glastonbury, Somerset. Now this is the one pub that I have stayed in and can thoroughly recommend it, although I did not notice anything unusual for Glastonbury. A cheerful rotund monk was often seen in the haunted cell, a guest room, sometimes laughing, walking through walls or staggering. He is also thought to have committed suicide at the inn. An apparition of a woman who fell in love with a monk, believed to haunt the premises following the tragic forbidden romance. Guests have reported sightings of spectral monks in the corridor, feeling of being watched and disembodied laughter. Room 2 is specifically noted for high paranormal activity. including spectral visiting guests at night. Old Hatchet in Bristol, the upper floors and general pub areas are reportedly haunted with spirits said to be from the long storied past, as a haunt for sailors, pirates and criminals. The pub's front door has a grisly legend. It is reputedly covered in human skin, a practice sometimes associated with bookbinding, in this case a morbid form of decoration. Ancient Ram in Gloucestershire, often called the most demonic house in the UK, though it ceased operating as a traditional pub in 1968. The Bishop's Room is considered the most active room, where guest reports being pushed or seeing a spectral cavalier. Built on an ancient pagan burial ground, allegedly, at the intersection of two ley lines, again allegedly. Reports include a 15th century witch, a murdered innkeeper's daughter, and an incubus, yet again allegedly. It's not been used as a pub for many years, and whilst it's possible to stay the night, it's not a bed and breakfast. I've already issued a vlog on the Ancient Ram in which I expressed my doubts about some of these stories and identified a commercial reason for perpetuating them. Queen's Head, Monmouth, a spectral old man is commonly reported sitting by a fire in a pub. The pub was a resting place for Oliver Cromwell during the Civil War. Legends suggest a failed assassination attempt on Cornwall occurred here. I do believe that I also spent the night here, but was confused with the Queen's Head in Chepstow. Skirrid in Llanfihangel, Crickhorny, Monmouthshire, is often cited as the oldest and most haunted pub in Wales. The building was once used as a courtyard and execution site, where as many as 180 people were reportedly hanged, often by Judge Jeffreys. A beam on the staircase still bears rope marks from its time as a gallows. Visitors report seeing a helmeted soldier on the stairs, a former jailer, and a gentle spirit of Fanny Price, a former landlady. Reports include objects moving on their own, cackling laughter, and the sensation of invisible hands. The Blackbird, Tewkesbury, Gloucestershire. There are reports suggesting up to 47 spirits resided there, including witnesses have reported a headless soldier in uniform haunting the rooms and corridors, often described as dragging chairs. Along with the headless soldier, the pub is reportedly haunted by various other spirits. The pub reportedly features a secret passage, once used by monks to reach Tewkesbury Abbey. Whilst I don't believe I have ever visited this, it is the local for a friend of mine who lives on Tewkesbury Marina. The Old Tap at Worcester. In room 11, a young woman, approximately 20 years old, and dressed in Quaker clothing, is often seen disappearing out of the window. The cellar bar, a phantom black cat, described as looking like steel wool, was frequently seen on the stairs and in the bar before a 2004 refurbishment. A shadowy figure has also been spotted in the cellar. Rosie, a 4 to 5-year-old child who died after being struck by a carriage, is said to haunt the courtyards and caves. Visitors have reported mysterious scratches and left toys for her. 3 former landlords, all named John, are believed to haunt the pub, having died from suicide, accidentally poisoning, and a fall down the cellar stairs, respectively. The ghost of a highwayman is reported to be seen drinking at the bar. The Old Hop Pole, West Brom, is home to a little boy and girl in Victorian costumes. Also, an older man has been seen in the snug and could be ex-landlord Alfred Kendricks, whilst the cellar is also reputedly haunted. Nag's Head, Shrewsbury, a pub I once considered my local. It is reputed to be haunted, most famously due to the haunting painting hidden in an upstairs cupboard. Legend claims that the painting depicts the devil, Neptune, or a trident-wielding figure, drives viewers to suicide, including a coachman who allegedly threw himself under a horse, a soldier who died during World War II, and a woman who threw herself from the window. Old King's Head, Chester. The inn is claimed to be haunted by 13 spirits, with over 2,000 reported incidents of paranormal activity. Reports often stem from the 8-bedroom hotel on the second floor. A historic sword was discovered under the floorboards in bedroom 4, which now hangs above the bar. I didn't believe that I'd ever visited the pub, but looking at the picture, which does look like every pub in Chester, maybe I have. The old trip to Jerusalem, Nottingham, another pub that I've certainly visited. With a cursed model ship, reputed to be the oldest pub in England, the trip to Jerusalem is said to have been built in 1189. In the Rock Lounge, the pub is literally built into the caves below Nottingham Castle. A model galleon is hanging from the ceiling, covered with what looks like 50 years of dust and cobwebs. No one will clean the galleon because it is cursed. The Rock Lounge in particular seems to be the focal point of what is happening. For odd happenings, things such as keys disappear and have been known to turn up in odd places later. Glasses and bottles have been known to fly off the shelves and smash when no one is nearby. The old Salutation in Nottingham, built over a 9th century cave system used for brewing and refuge. A flower girl, Rosie, who died at the inn, she's said to scratch people until they leave dolls for her in the caves. 3 former landlords, all called John, who died in the building, are said to haunt the premises. A spectral hymen is also frequently reported in the ground floor bar. Roman soldiers are seen walking through the walls in the cellar. An evil entity is reported, possessed clock in the bar, and a distressed former resident, and even the landlord's pets. The Black Bull Haworth, a pub I know very well, is famously haunted by the spirit of Branwell Bronte, a brother of the famous Literary sisters, who was a frequent drinker there. A replica of the chair Branwell used to sit in on the landing of the pub, with the original kept at the nearby Bronte Parsonage Museum. The pub is reputedly haunted by a weeping woman and other figures potentially linked to the nearby churchyard, where historically flooding occurred, causing remains to wash into the pub's cellars. Golden Fleece, York, is considered the most haunted pub in York, a city already known for its spectral residents. Lady Alice Peckett, the most famous ghost, seen wandering corridors and moving furniture. Jeff Monroe, a Canadian airman from World War II, who reportedly fell from an upper window. He's seen in full uniform, standing over guest beds. One-Eyed Jack, a man in 17th century red coat, is often seen in the bottom bar, carrying a pistol. The cellar Roman soldiers are said to march through the cellar, which was once used to store dead criminals. At Drovers Inn, Loch Lomond, visitors have reported hearing phantom footsteps, moving furniture, and seeing mysterious, tiny white lights in rooms. Room 6, sometimes referred to as Abigail's room, is reputedly the most haunted area in the hotel. The historic inn is decorated with and famous for its extensive and somewhat macabre taxidermy collection. Known as a hotel of death and little house of horrors, it's been featured on various ghost hunting, true haunting and paranormal YouTube channels and podcasts. White Hart Inn, Edinburgh, staff have reported a shadowy figure in the cellar, as well as a pair of detached legs. Barrels are moved and beer in the cellar is frequently found disconnected. Patrons have reported having their hair pulled and hearing strange noises. The pub is located in the Grassmarket, a historic pub for public executions, adding to its dark reputation. The poet Robert Burns once stayed here, and the area was frequented by infamous murderers Burke and Hare. The Banshees Labyrinth, Edinburgh, was originally merely called the Labyrinth, owing to the multiple corridors, hidden rooms, and disoriented staircases, characteristics of the vaults. It features a banshee spirit and is built on over the former underground city vaults. Customers have reported having seen a small girl walk straight through locked grates, having a chair violently shaken by an unseen force, and forcibly being followed home by a present that eventually necessitated a second visit in order to return the offender to the premises. Binkies, Edinburgh, a subterranean music venue in Edinburgh's Old Town, built into the famous Edinburgh vaults. The pub is steeped in tales of ghosts and restless spirits that linger in damp stone chambers, reported to be haunted by cloaked poltergeist that manipulate doors and trap staff in the cellar. For years, visitors, staff and paranormal investigators have reported strange encounters here. Whistle Bikinis is said to be home to three of the vault's most intriguing spirits: Mr. Boots, the Watcher and the Imp. The Crown Liquor Salon, Belfast, another wonderful pub that I visited. A famous Victorian gin palace maintained by the National Trust. This pub is reputedly haunted by at least two spirits: Amelia, a woman who died after falling downstairs, and Patrick Flanagan, who renovated the pub in 1885. Patrons have been reported hearing disembodied voices, unexplained knocking in the snugs, and seeing figures in ornate mirrors. Grace Neal's Donaghty, one of the region's oldest pubs, where the original owner, Grace Neal, is still said to pace the floors above the bar. Originally called the King's Arms when it was first established, the bar was taken over by Grace Neal, and she spent decades serving drink to those who entered, while she herself indulged in her trademark clay pipe. The tough woman had no problem keeping the customers happy and stopping them from getting rowdy, even when they were visited by smugglers and pirates, who would often land in Neal's coastal town of Donaghty. Grace was known to greet each visitor to the pub with a huge kiss on the cheek. She was described as having a strong spirit, which might explain why a ghost stuck around after her death in 1916. Cold spots dot the otherwise warm atmosphere, and some have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a Victorian-era woman wandering the snug of the front bars. Well, that concludes my ghostly pub crawl. Based on my in-depth knowledge of two of the pubs, I cannot guarantee that you'll have seen a ghost, but you certainly will be somewhat drunk.